crime scene.
This is a crime right here. This is a fake crime right here. Maybe he was chill with living on sex and white bread, but I'm not. Hey, what's up? My name's Alea. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome back to another reading vlog. So this time we're doing a really big romance reading vlog, and in this video I read 5 romance novels, and Peyton and I went on vacation to see my family, and we had a really nice time with them, and we also did some cozy baking and made some gingerbread houses and had a generally fun and fresh time. So without any further ado, let's get into the vlog. Hello, so reading update. I just started reading Christmas Eve at Friday Harbor last night. So this is a older Lisa Kleypas novel that came out in like 2010, and it's the first book in a series called the Friday Harbor series. And I own books 2 and 3, and I have for a while, but I haven't been able to find book 1. And I was at the library this week and I found this book, and I was like, I just feel like I'm super drawn to this book because the prologue was really tender, and it kind of just hit me in the feels, and I was like, shit, I have to take this book home. So the prologue is this little note from this little girl named Holly, and she says, "Dear Santa, I just want one thing this year, a mom. Please don't forget I live in Friday Harbor now. Thank you. Love, Holly." And then chapter 1 starts with this guy named Mark Nolan talking about how his sister died, and so now he has just become the official guardian of this young girl named Holly, who's 6. And so she just lost her mom in this really tragic car accident, and so now she's gone to live with her Uncle Mark and her Uncle Sam, and they're both like young single guys living in this place called Friday Harbor, and they have their own like businesses and stuff. But Holly doesn't really have any women in her life now that her mom's passed away, and so the romance is kind of following her Uncle Mark meeting this lady named Maggie who owns this toy store that they go to, and it's really, really tender. And I'm already like 120 pages in. I just started it like last night, and it's really, really good so far. I'm really enjoying it. You can kind of tell from the writing that it was written in like 2010, but it's not really taking away from my enjoyment because I'm really invested in the characters, and I feel like the chemistry between Mark and Maggie is really, really good. And as I was reading this, I was like, damn, this plot sounds so familiar. Like, where have I heard this story before? And turns out that this book was actually made into a Hallmark movie that came out in like 2012, and I'm pretty sure I watched it back in 2012, and it's been that long since I've seen it, so I'll put that cover up here. But in that movie, Tom Cruise plays the Uncle Mark, and so this whole time I'm reading this book, I'm just picturing Mark as like Tom Cruise, and it's really fun, and I'm really enjoying this. So it's kind of funny because I thought that this first book in this series wasn't going to be very good, which is why I didn't buy it, even though I had the other books, because people were saying that this was really bad on Goodreads. But to be honest, I disagree, and I think y'all are Grinches, because I think this is really fun. And it's very cozy. The toy store that Maggie owns is so cute. It's full of like fairies, and she has this like little fairy house that she built that is inside the toy store, and she's got like books, and it's just really cool, and I really like it a lot. And then just like all the descriptions of this place that they live called Friday Harbor is really cool because it's set in Washington, like on San Juan Island, and so there's all these descriptions of like the water and the mountains and the plants and animals that are there and stuff, and like the ferry rides that they go on to get from place to place. And I just really enjoy this, and I think that if you like Hallmark movies, or you just want something like cozy and Christmassy and fun and kind of old school to read, I would recommend this because it's really good. And I also wanted to add a couple other books to my TBR that I don't own physically. So I also want to read Snowed In with the Player, which is a brother's best friend, like second chance kind of college romance. It looks really good, and a lot of people have been reading this lately and saying that it's good, so I'm excited. It's also a novella. It's only like 130 pages. And then I also want to read another one by Eloisa James called Seduced by the Pirate. So this is one that I have had on ebook for a long time. I just have not gotten around to it, so I think I might try to get to that this week as well. That one's also like a little over 100 pages. So anyways, loving this, excited to get to some of those ebooks, and I will update you when I've read something else. So reading update, I just finished Snowed In with the Player, and I didn't really update you guys while I was reading it because it's only 130 pages. It's a really short, smutty Christmas novella, but I really enjoyed it, and we're following this girl named Holly, and she and her twin sister Stella are driving home for Christmas, and they're going to their family's cabin, and they're really excited because they're going to go watch Christmas movies and bake cookies, and they have this whole like really festive evening planned. And then they get there and their older brother Felix is there with a bunch of his college football buddies, and they're like throwing a big party and stuff. And so the girls roll up and they're like, okay, like so much for our chill ass weekend. But they get there and the main character Holly realizes that one of the guys who's there is Teddy, and Teddy is her brother's best friend, and he's a football player, and she's had a crush on him for a while, like ever since she met him, but she like doesn't want to say anything because she's not sure if he likes her back or not, because you know, she is really close with her brother, but this guy is also like the brother's best friend, and they hang out a lot. Like he came to Christmas last year and stuff, and she's had this connection with him, but like she doesn't want to mess anything up, and she's really shy because she's totally a book nerd and she's really sweet. And so one thing leads to another, and Holly and Teddy end up getting snowed in at the cabin alone, and the power goes out. And then things kind of like go from there, and it's really cute. It's spicy, but their relationship is also really sweet, and there's lots of Christmassy stuff that they do. Like they go and get a Christmas tree, and they're baking cookies and all this stuff, and it was really festive and fun, and I liked it a lot. So if you're looking for just a fun, quick holiday novella to read, this is a good one, I think. There is a sequel to it, but I was gonna read that one today too, and then I kind of started it and I realized that it's from the twin sister Stella's point of view, but a lot of the same dialogue from the first one is used in the second one. It's just from the other sister's perspective, and it's about her romance with a different guy. And I'm not sure if I want to read that right now or if I want to like give it some time between the first one and second one. But anyways, the first one was very fun. I liked the romance a lot. I thought that they were really well matched, and the guy Teddy is actually really sweet. They call him Teddy even though his real name is Theodore, because he's like a big teddy bear, because he's like big and burly, but he's really sweet on the inside. And I just thought that was really tender. And Teddy's mom passed away when he was young, so he kind of likes Holly because she's really into Christmas, and his mom was really into Christmas, and his mom used to bake Christmas cookies all the time and stuff, and it's just really tender. And there's also times where like Holly and Stella and Felix and the rest of the family are like hanging out, having family game night during Christmas, and it's just festive and fun and fresh, and I liked it a lot.
Take mine.
Well, I didn't want to drip and...
Got a lot of balls on that house, Reggie.
Russell? Yay!
If I try to put balls on my house, they just go ching, 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 ching.
Dad, I love you, but that is not it, brother.
It's a crime scene.
This is a crime right here. This is a fake crime right here. The Grinch killed the gingerbread man. It's a crime scene over here.
You gotta make it on YouTube.
Oh, Lord. So it's been a little while since I updated you. So Christmas is officially over and so is New Year's, and we're into January now. I didn't really update a lot during like the Christmas time because Peyton and I were super busy traveling and we had to fly out on Christmas Day because I was working Christmas Eve and it was just really busy. We were hanging out with family and I just wanted to take some time to like chill with my family and Peyton and stuff. And so once we got back, I did do a little bit of reading, and so I finished 2 books. So I finished Christmas Eve at Friday Harbor by Lisa Kleypas, and I really enjoyed this. The end was super sweet, and I thought this was a really nice, wholesome, comforting kind of Christmas romance, and I liked it a lot. So I think I'm gonna give this 4 stars. I will say that it does not have as much like steamy stuff as I thought it would. It was a little bit like fade to black, but I still really enjoyed it and I thought it was really fun. And then I also finished up The Dragon's Bride by Katie Robert, and I don't think I really told you guys what this is about. So this is a monster romance, and we're following this woman named Briar, who's a human, and at the beginning of the story she is making a deal with this demon guy named Azazel because she is in this really abusive marriage and she's recently tried to run away from her husband, and he caught her and he like beat her up and like said that if she runs again he's gonna kill her. And so she's like, oh my god, like I can't stay with this man, I'm not safe, and he's super awful. And so she decides to make a deal with the demon that basically she is exchanging 7 years of her life, and in return the demon's going to kill her husband for her. And so they make this deal and they sign this contract, and in the contract it says that she has to go with this demon man to the demon realm for 7 years, and she has to give someone, a person of the demon's choosing, the opportunity to seduce her. And basically there's also this clause in there that like if she gets pregnant, her baby has to stay in the demon realm even if she leaves after 7 years. And so she signs this deal just trying to like get away from her husband, and the demon guy kills her husband, and things kind of go from there, and she gets sucked into the demon realm, and she ends up getting auctioned off to this dragon man named Soul, and he is one of like a few different territory leaders. And so basically this demon guy takes these human women from the human world and makes these deals with them so that he can use them as like peace offerings, kind of, because there's all these different territories in the demon realm that are run by different like monster folks. And so there's like the dragons and gargoyles and the like incubus, succubus people and the krakens and all these different folks. And so the leader of all the territories come to this auction, and they all end up getting paired up with human women, and the humans go back with them to their different territories. And so each book in the series is following a different couple from the auction. And so this follows Briar, Rose, and Soul. And so at the beginning, Briar is like really freaked out because she just got out of this abusive marriage and she hasn't really had time to like process it at all. And now she gets auctioned off to this dragon guy who is kind of like grumpy and stuff, and she has to go like live with him at his castle, and she has to marry him as well. And she's not really like into that, and she doesn't even know him, and she's like, oh my god, there's these dragon people, like what the hell's going on? And it's actually really cute. It's kind of like a grumpy sunshine kind of romance, and it's also a Beauty and the Beast retelling. And so this dragon guy Soul has this big castle, and it has a big garden, and it has the classic Beauty and the Beast like giant library thing going on, and it's really fun. And I actually just really like this series. Like, it kind of has me by the throat at the moment, if I'm honest, because I like these like fantasy romances with the monsters because it's just really interesting, and they have like different anatomy, and it's fun and it's spicy. And this one was like really steamy. Actually, I was like not totally prepared for how steamy it was going to be, but it was really fun and I really enjoyed it. And I like all of the fantasy elements. I like learning about all the different territories and the different creatures that live there and all that kind of stuff. It was really fun, and I thought that the relationship between Briar, Rose, and Soul was actually really sweet. I think I'm gonna give it 4 stars though and not 5, because the dragons kind of have this thing where after they get married they go into this like mating frenzy, and so Soul had that for like a lot of the books, so he was like kind of aggressive towards like other dragons and stuff because he was in the mating frenzy. And then I guess once that's over they like kind of chill out. But there's definitely some like spicy scenes revolving around that, and that was like cool, but I didn't feel like it needed to like go on as long as it did. But that's just a personal thing. I thought the ending was really sweet, and I think it really like kicked off the series well. We got to meet all these different characters that we see later on in the series. And so continuing on from that, since I finished that, I have started book 2, The Kraken Sacrifice. And this one I like even more than book 1 because I really like this couple in this second book, Catalina and Thane. So Thane is the Kraken guy, and so he is basically like the arch nemesis of the dragon guy from book 1. And so he ends up choosing this woman, Catalina, during the auction and taking her back to live in the ocean with him in his like ocean cavern castle kind of thing. And so they are really interesting because they have really good banter. And Thane was married before, and his husband got killed, and he's been alone for a long time, and he's really grumpy and like doesn't really want a wife or children or anything. Like, he's not looking to get an heir out of this whole marriage situation. He kind of is just like, okay, I want to be a part of this peace treaty sort of situation we have going on, and so I'm going to take a human bride or whatever from the auction, but I don't really need one. And so he's kind of thinking that he's just gonna like let Catalina live in her corner in the castle, and he's gonna go do his own thing. But Catalina is a zesty gal, and so she is like sassy to him, and he is having a lot of fun like hanging out with her, and he kind of becomes like different when he's around her. Like, she brings out a different side of him that he's not used to, and he's been really sad for a long time since his husband died, and he kind of just hangs out as king of the ocean, and he has a brother that he hangs out with too. But yeah, so it's really interesting because Catalina definitely had like a rough upbringing, and her mom was like pretty abusive to her. And so she kind of has this thing where she doesn't like to be like locked up. That's like a trigger for her from her childhood. And so when Thane like leaves her alone a lot, she gets really like antsy. And so she has this tendency to like escape from places. Like she'll pick locks and shit and get out and kind of like cause trouble and like try to talk to people and stuff, and everybody's like, oh my god, like go away, like go somewhere else. And she kind of has this vibe from everybody in her life, from like teachers that she's had and, you know, previous partners that she's had and her parents and stuff, that like she's just like the mistake child, like she can't do anything right, she's just a disappointment. And so I think that's going to be kind of more of a factor as the book goes on, like her and Thane and how that plays into their relationship, because I think she kind of gets the vibe from him that he doesn't really like her and that he thinks she's kind of a disappointment too, but he's definitely very into her and they have a lot of really good chemistry going on, and I'm really enjoying that. And Thane is also cool because he's a kraken and he has tentacles, and he's just interesting and broody and grumpy and fun, and I'm just having a really good time with their fun little banter scenes. So I'm currently reading that, and I'm probably going to finish this really soon because I'm super into it. So I also started reading this book that I hauled in my recent like come book shopping with me video, which I'll link down below, and I got this from my local used bookstore, and it's called Chic by Connie Mason. So this is about this sheik named Jamal, and basically he is this really wealthy sheik with this harem of women, and he's also a pirate, so he makes money like stealing gold from the Spaniards that he runs into on the high seas. And one day he comes back from this year-long trip that he's been on, and he is talking to the guy who's like running the city that he lives in, who's also very wealthy and kind of an asshole. And the leader tells him, hey, I need you to take like 100 of our best warriors and go into the mountains, because there's these group of like rebel mountain people who used to run this city, and they like were kicked out of power and now they live in the mountains, and they are getting really powerful again, and they are like sabotaging the caravans that are coming in and bringing goods to the city, so I need you to go and take them out. And Jamal's like, dude, I just got back from my long ass trip, like can I go to my house and like see my women? And the leader of the city is like, no dude, like I need you to go now. And Jamal's like, fine. And he only agrees because the mountain people killed his dad, and so he kind of has a bone to pick with them anyways. So he goes and he sets up this whole like trap with this new caravan of gold that's coming in, and he basically ambushes them. And during the ambush he captures the daughter of the leader of that clan, and her name is Zara, and she's a princess, and she was raised to be a warrior. And so basically she gets taken prisoner by the sheik, and she's supposed to basically be the prisoner of the leader of the city, but Jamal ends up kind of falling for her because she's not like the other like Arab women who are more like submissive and stuff in their culture. She's like this badass warrior lady who doesn't take shit from anybody, and so he's really intrigued by that, and they kind of strike up a relationship. But it's interesting because Jamal is very wealthy, and because he's her captive, he's kind of like pushy, and so this definitely has some like questionable consent going on, and there's also some like questionable racial language that's used, because in this book there's the Arabs that Jamal is like part of that group, and then the mountain people are more like Eastern European, more like Caucasian looking folks. And then there's also some like African people that have been enslaved by the Arabs, and so there's sort of some like questionable racial language used in that context as well. So there's definitely some like questionable stuff in here, I'll just say. And since it was written in the 90s, it's not like super surprising, but it is entertaining, I will say that. And I'm intrigued to see where the story goes and what happens with Jamal, because he's definitely in a weird spot, because he's, you know, wealthy and stuff, but this leader of the city guy is definitely like very pushy, and I think if Jamal tries to go against him, there's going to be issues. Plus the whole idea that like Zara got captured and what's going to happen and what's her dad going to do about it, and is there going to be some kind of like war between these two groups? I don't know, but it's definitely interesting. I like the politics that are going on in here, and I think Jamal is interesting, but I'm not super chill with like dubious consent, so we'll see how that goes. But anyways, so I'm working on reading these two, and I'm definitely super into this one. I'm into this, but not as much. So I'm gonna read some more of these, and I will update you when I finish something else. So happy Sunday. I wanted to let you know that I just started another book, and that is Secrets of a Summer Night by Lisa Kleypas. So I've been binge reading this for the last 2 days, and I'm on page like 230, and it's really, really good so far. I think this is going to be my first 5-star of the year. This might be the best romance that I've ever read. It's so good. So we're following this lady named Annabelle at the beginning, and this is her right here. She is a wallflower, and so basically she has gone through like 4 seasons and she can't get anybody to marry her, and nobody wants to marry her because her father died a few years ago, and so her family is totally broke. Her dresses are in rags. Her brother and her mom are having a really hard time financially, and to the point where they're like getting really, really desperate, and they're about ready to have to like live on the streets. Annabelle's trying to find some guy to marry her so that he can help support her family, and just so that she can have a life, because she's kind of like stuck in this rundown house with her mom, and they're trying to put her brother through school and they can't afford his next semester and things are bad. And so she's at this ball one night and she's waiting for somebody to come and ask her to dance, and her dance card is empty and she's really lonely, and she's kind of realizing that she and these 3 other girls have all been sitting on the sidelines basically during this whole season, and nobody wants to marry them or dance with them or anything. And so she ends up striking up a conversation with one of these girls, and one thing leads to another, and they end up starting this really cute little like friend group. And so it's Annabelle and then these 2 girls who are sisters, Daisy and Lillian, and they're Americans, and nobody wants to marry them because they're really like brash and they don't know how to be ladies, and they're from New York, and they are basically like little sassy troublemakers, and it's great. And then the 4th girl is Evie, and she is really pretty. She's a ginger. She's so sweet, but she's really shy, and she has kind of a stutter, and so a lot of the men are really like put off by that. But she's also rich. Like her family is old money, and so they all are kind of like in the same boat, and they're really desperate for husbands. And so they kind of make this pact with each other that they are going to come up with a scheme to get each other husbands. And so they kind of make this plan that like they're gonna try to be a little bit nefarious about things, and once they figure out who they want to marry, they're gonna try and set up some plot where like they'll get the guy into like a compromising situation, and the other girls will come and like catch them, and so the guy will be forced to marry the girl or whatever. Like they're coming up with all these schemes, and they made this big long list of like all the eligible bachelors and like which guys they think would be the best, and it's really cute. And they also start writing letters to each other, and the letters are so funny. Oh my god. They're kind of getting to know each other through these letters and like these different balls that they're going to, and they are also talking about like the things that the Bowman sisters do for fun in America and that kind of stuff. And the girls like to play this game called Rounders, and it's basically like baseball, but you can't play it in a dress because you have to be able to run. And so they call it Rounders and Knickers, which is just iconic. Hello. And so they're like setting up this plan because there's this ball coming up really soon at Lord Westcliffe's estate. And so they're like, okay, we're all gonna go and get invited to this ball. And Lillian is like, don't worry, Annabelle, we'll loan you some new dresses and stuff since your dresses are like in rags because you're broke. Like, don't worry about it. We'll all get dressed up and go to this ball. We'll find husbands and it'll be great. And so they decide that while they're there, they're gonna try and play like a game of Rounders and Knickers. And the American girls are trying to get Evie and Annabelle to like play rounders with them, and it's so funny. And Annabelle is like really not sure if she wants to, and Evie is like totally down. And so Annabelle and Evie are writing these letters back and forth to each other. And when Annabelle finds out that Evie is like down to play rounders, she goes, "Dear Evie, impressed, amused, and somewhat apprehensive about what scrapes these Bowmans will land us in. Where, pray tell, are we to find a place where we may play rounders and knickers unobserved? Yes, I am thoroughly shocked, you shameless hussy." And then Evie writes her back another letter, and she says, "Dear Annabelle, I am coming to believe that there are two kinds of people, those who choose to be masters of their own fate, and those who wait in chairs while others dance. I would rather be one of the former than the latter. As to how and when a rounders game shall take place, I am satisfied to leave the details to the Bowmans. With all fondness, Evie the hussy." Oh my god. So these girls are so funny. I've just been like cackling over all of their little friend dynamics. And then also at this same ball where Annabelle like meets these girls and strikes up this friendship, there's this man, Simon Hunt, and turns out he and Annabelle had this one like magical kiss like 2 years ago, and he's been like totally into her ever since. But he is really rich, but he's kind of like an entrepreneur, and he's invested in like the railroad and stuff, but he's not an aristocrat, so he doesn't have a title. And so she doesn't want to marry him, and she also really doesn't like him because after they kissed, he kind of like ran off, and so she just felt like he used her. And so they kind of have this dynamic going on that's really tense because he's into her and trying to get her to dance and like get with him and stuff, and he knows that like she's probably not going to marry him, and he doesn't really want a wife, he doesn't want to settle down, but he wants to take her as his mistress. And she's like, "I'm not going to be anybody's mistress, I'm not down for that, I want to marry somebody, leave me alone, Simon." And oh my god, their banter is so good, it's so funny, they're so witty and snarky, and I'm obsessed with them, to be honest. Like, Simon Hunt is my new book boyfriend. He's everything. He's a hunk, and he's funny, and we love to see it. And there's so many good scenes with them. Like, by 200 pages, there had been one kiss, and the rest was just straight up angst. It was great. And so they also have all these other scenes once they go to this ball at Westcliffe's estate, and Simon Hunt is there as well, wouldn't you know, because turns out he and Westcliff are like really good friends. And so Annabelle and the girls are like there to find husbands, and they're all dressed up and stuff, and then of course he and Annabelle run into each other in the hallway like 100 times, and it's so funny, oh my god. And so at one point they're walking through the woods, and Annabelle is trying to talk to this other guy, Lord Kendall, who she's trying to marry because he has a title and he's rich and stuff. And so all the single ladies there are like dying over Kendall, and they're all vying for his attention and stuff. And so this big group of ladies like goes walking through the woods with Kendall, and Annabelle is tagging along like trying to get his attention, and Simon Hunt like follows her, and she ends up getting some like prickly ferns and stuff stuck in her stockings, and she's like complaining about the pain, and he's like, "Oh my god, let me help you." And so he's like trying to crawl up her skirt and like get the thorny ferns out of her stocking, and she's like, "Oh my god, like get out of my skirts, Kendall's gonna see you." And it's so funny. And they also like play chess together, and he's trying to like teach her strategy and stuff, but he's also kind of trying to like get her to want him so that she will be his mistress. And it's just really cute, and Annabelle is taking none of his shit, but it's so funny. They have such a good bit of tension going on here, and it's so fun. I just love it so much. So I'm absolutely dying over this. I'm obsessed. I already got book 2 from the library, and I ordered book 3 on Fango. So I think I'm just gonna binge this whole series. I'm already over halfway through this one, so I really want to finish this, and then I'll probably read the other 2 in a future vlog. And I also read some more of The Kraken Sacrifice by Katie Robert, and I kind of made the mistake of looking at reviews before I had finished this, and apparently a lot of other people were not a fan of this. and I was looking at their reviews, and I think that everything that people were saying is true. But what I do like about this is that Katie Robert makes really messy characters, and I appreciate that because I don't think normal people are, you know, not messy. And these relationships do make sense because, you know, these women are being married off to these monster men, and the monster men are not used to being around humans, and so a lot of times they don't take into consideration the fact that, you know, humans have different body types and they can't withstand certain things that the monster people can. And so in this book that plays in pretty heavily because our main character guy, Thane, he really is kind of negligent toward Catalina in a lot of points, and there are certain things he does that kind of like cause her physical harm, not like on purpose, but he lives in the ocean, she doesn't know how to swim, and also like humans get sick if they go underwater and come up too fast, and so certain things happen like that where she is like harmed a little bit, like she, you know, she's not dying or anything, and like their contract that they signed with the demon guy isn't broken by these things, but like part of that is because Catalina is used to being abused by her mom, and so a lot of the things that he does are negligent and not cool, but like it's still not breaking the contract, so it's kind of that weird fine line. And Catalina is always like, oh, it's fine, it's whatever, because obviously he's not doing it on purpose, like he just doesn't know because she's a human and they have different bodies, and it makes sense. But I think that too much of this book is spent with Thane being kind of negligent and ignoring her, because over half of this book Thane is like actively avoiding her because he's scared that he's catching feelings for her because he hasn't been with anybody since his husband died 5 years ago, and he's grieving, and that makes sense. But also he does some things that are like a little bit too far, I think, and he doesn't do them on purpose, but it's just like a real lack of communication between him and like everyone else. And so at one point he takes Catalina to his like castle place that's like partially underwater, and it's kind of like dusty and old and gross because he doesn't really live there very often. And so he takes her there to keep her safe, and he doesn't tell the servants there that she's like an honored guest. And so since he's ignoring her so much, they assume that she is like a prisoner, and they treat her as such. Like they just feed her white bread and like don't give her any clothes, and she has to like stay in the same ripped dress for a week and just stay in her room by herself, and it's pretty awful. And he comes back and realizes what has happened, and he like fixes the situation, but like it still happened, and it's just not, it's not good. Anyways, I just feel like Catalina really needed to tell this man like, hey, I know that you had a husband before and maybe he was chill with living on sex and white bread, but I'm not, you know, because that's really all he does. He kind of like ignores her, and then he comes back every once in a while and messes around with her, and they have sexy time, and then he leaves again because he feels like guilty for messing around with somebody who's not his husband, and he feels weird because he actually like cares about her and stuff, and then he just leaves, and he leaves her alone for a lot of the book, and that's not really cool. And we just needed a lot more scenes with them like getting to know each other and having fun and having that banter and like actually establishing a relationship before they started messing around and stuff, and we just didn't really get enough of that, I don't think. But I will say that I like this couple more than I liked the couple from book one, so I feel like for me they're kind of on even footing because I'm still having fun with this. I like the writing when they're together, I really like those scenes, but I do feel like she could have done a little bit more with this, or if it was just a little bit longer maybe it would work a little bit better. And I understand like why he's avoiding her and stuff, like it makes sense, but if that was going to go on for so long, the book needed to be longer later on so that we got more scenes with them actually getting to know each other. But that's just my personal opinion. I know a lot of people really were not down for this, but I still think it's sitting at like a 3.5 or 4 star for me. So anyways, I'm gonna keep reading some more of these, and I really want to finish this one like maybe tonight or tomorrow. My goal is to binge read the shit out of this weekend because I'm super into it and I'm obsessed. And this one is still really good and I really want to finish it because I do really like this series and I want to see what happens at the end with these characters and their relationship. So anyways, I'm gonna go read, and I also really need to do some editing today. I want to get this vlog edited. Probably not the whole thing because it takes me ages to edit these vlogs, but at least get it started. And I know Peyton and I need to go to the store, and I'm not sure what else we're gonna have going on, but that's the plan, and I will see you later. Hi, hello. So I just finished 2 more books. I finished The Kraken Sacrifice by Katie Robert and Secrets of a Summer Night by Lisa Kleypas. Let's talk about this one first. So I'm gonna give this a 3.5. I didn't hate it, but I also didn't love it. And I don't want to shit on it too much, but also, you ever just pick up a romance novella because you're thinking it's gonna be like a titillating tentacle time, and instead you get a story about two folks who have gone through a lot of trauma and are basically just like grieving and talking about their trauma the whole time and not really having the spicy romance that you were thinking they were gonna have. And then they're so bad at communicating that the main hero ends up like unintentionally hurting the heroine a bunch of times, and then she has to have an abortion, and then they live happily ever after. You ever just this book wasn't bad. Like, I liked the characters and I liked the moments that they did have when they were getting to know each other and stuff like that. Like, at one point they're playing chess together and like actually talking and cuddling and like having dinner together and stuff, and it's really cute. But a lot of those scenes were very like telling and not showing, and then all the scenes when they were talking about their grief and their trauma and the tentacle stuff, that was very like showing instead of just telling. And so it just kind of felt like you didn't really get all of those cute sweet scenes because the author was just telling you that they happened and you didn't really get to like see it happen, you know what I'm saying? So like they definitely went on the cute little like adventures in the ocean and stuff, but we got to read like a paragraph about like, oh yeah, that happened like a couple days ago, and it's like, no, I want to see it happen. I want to see them get to know each other and have cute moments and not just have like these sad grief conversations. Or even like during the spicy scenes, their inner monologues, they were thinking about like their trauma, or like the main heroine Catalina is thinking about like her ex who fat shamed her as she's like getting it on with this tentacle guy. And I'm like, dude, I want to be in the moment. I want to feel the zest. This is not giving the zest, you know what I'm saying? So anyways, and then the abortion scene at the end was not like badly handled. Like, I think it was actually done pretty well. But I noticed that in this book, and also in the first book, The Dragon's Bride, there are these unplanned pregnancy scenes that were just so not needed. And like in this book, the main girl Briar has to like take a magical plan B, and then in this one we have the abortion scene, and it's just like, do we need to have a scene like that in every single novella in this series? Because like this is only 170 pages, and for most of it to be like sad stuff and like the main guy Thane dealing with grief and Catalina dealing with like how her mom was abusive and the ways that that affects their communication with each other, and like it gets better, but it's just like I don't want a zesty little romance novella that's supposed to be super spicy and a monster romance at that to end up just being like sad. And especially with like the abortion stuff, it's like that's not fun, that's not spicy, like that's not the sexy stuff women want to read. It's not, I'm sorry. So anyways, it's like these are fun and I like the monster romance elements, but I don't know if Katie Robert is an author that I'm as into as I thought I was, because I liked both of these. I liked this one more, but this one just had a lot of focus in areas that I didn't think the focus needed to be on. Anyways, enough of that. So next I want to tell you about Secrets of a Summer Night. So I'm gonna give this 4.5. The first 2/3 of this, god tier, 5-star, love to see it. Simon Hunt, amazing. The banter, brilliant. The friend group with the girlies, love to see that. This man, hot. But the last third is a little bit funky because the last third of this book, Annabelle and Simon are actually like together as a couple, and we get to see that for like the last 100 pages. And they end up like going on a honeymoon to Paris and stuff, and it's cute. But there's also a lot of scenes in that last third that like didn't quite hit for me. Like Annabelle spends a lot of time talking about how she feels like she doesn't really know Simon that well and like doesn't know that much about his business stuff, and she feels kind of like lost in this business world that he sort of like introduces her to, because she is now being kind of like pulled away from the British aristocracy that she thought she was going to marry into, because she married a guy who is like more middle class even though he's rich, and so a lot of the rich ladies like look down on them and stuff, and she kind of feels like she doesn't really know any of these business people, and they act different than the other people that she's used to being around. Like they're not as like proper, and they don't have good manners, and they're a little bit more like boisterous, and they openly talk about money and things like that. And she's not really used to that. And then she also kind of has to get used to like his family and like all his siblings that he has when they go to visit. And his mom is kind of like, okay, did this girl just marry my son for his money, or does she actually like love him? And so there's a lot of people kind of like, I don't know, nitpicking at their relationship, I guess, and they're kind of having to like work through that and work through their class differences now that they're together and stuff. And that just was not as fun to read about, and some of it I don't think was necessary. Like Annabelle's talking about how she feels like she doesn't know him that well, but I'm like, girl, like 100 pages ago you guys sat down at a dinner and talked openly about his business stuff, and he told you about what he does with the like railroad stuff that he's invested in, and how he goes to the factory and like helps oversee the building of these train engines and stuff. And she's kind of just like, oh, I don't really know what he does, and I'm kind of second guessing things a little bit because I feel out of place in society now that I married him. And I'm like, oh, your man is hot. Can you just be with your hot man in Paris, you know? So I don't know, that was a little bit hard. And there's also a couple times where I felt like Simon acted a little bit out of character, like he was being a little bit more like cold and distant to her than he was the rest of the book, and there was a little bit less banter and like fun stuff with them in the last third, which was a little bit sad as well. And then also we didn't get to see the girly friend group together because Annabelle was off with Simon at their honeymoon and stuff. And then also Evie was just like not in the last third of the book at all. And straight up the last few pages, the other Wallflower girls finally get together and are like talking and stuff, and they're like, oh, we miss Evie so much, like her awful family has like locked her away in their house because they don't like that Annabelle married this like lower born guy and stuff. And so Evie doesn't even get to be around when Annabelle and Simon are like getting together and stuff. So Evie is just like missing. At the end the girls are like, oh, I miss Evie, and I'm like, oh, me too. Where the hell is Evie? Like she's my favorite gal. Where is Evie? Like I felt like she needed to be there at the end because she and Annabelle were really close and stuff, and so that felt a little bit weird. But for the most part I really liked this book, but that last third didn't quite hit for me as much as I wanted it to. Like there were still some really cute like scenes with them that were kind of like steamy and stuff, and I liked that, but I just wanted a little bit more from the last third of this when they were actually like together and that kind of thing. So anyways, on the whole, it was a pretty enlightening vlog. So I read 5 romances, and I also started Chic, and I am still working my way through this one as well. So Kraken Sacrifice was 3.5 stars, Dragon's Bride was 4 stars, Secrets of a Summer Night was 4.5, and Christmas Eve at Friday Harbor, I think I gave that one 4.5 as well, or 4. And then Snowden with the Player was also, I think, a 4. So anyways, on the whole, pretty good reading time. And I will say, I think that Lisa Kleypas is an author I really want to read more from. And Katie Robert is an author that I like, but I don't think I love her stuff. So that's kind of where I'm at. And if you got to the end of this vlog, thank you so much for watching. Sorry it was like kind of chaotic because I pretty much just updated you whenever I was reading a romance. And also sorry I haven't uploaded a video in like 3 weeks. I've been in hibernation basically because I live in a winter hellscape, in case you weren't aware. So basically I've been getting up, getting ready, going to work, coming home, eating enchiladas, and then passing out because I'm so tired, and I'm like a little bear cub that just wants to eat enchiladas. And then when I come out of my slumber once in a while, I read a romance and tell you about it. And that's pretty much what we've been up to. And when I haven't been hibernating or reading, I've been applying for jobs and doing like job interviews and doing some of that kind of stuff, and that's been kind of crazy. So I'll talk to you later about that in a different video. But anyways, that's all I got. So thank you so much for watching. If you made it to the end of this video, leave me some kind of romance related emoji, either like a heart or like a chocolate emoji or like a rose or a flower or something like that, something cute. And I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!